Hi, welcome to Tuesday Tea Time. Today we are going to, we've developed tea time for busy professionals where personal and professional development is the first thing to drop off their long list of to-dos. These are small but impactful tips to carry with you throughout your week. Just 10 minutes a week and you'll launch your success through empowering strategies and skills to combat burnout. Our goal is to retain talented professionals and inspire future leaders. My name is Megan Nabozic. I'm the founder and CEO of Leadership Within, where we guide people on a transformative journey of both personal and professional growth. We recognize that everyone has the influence to make great change happen. Therefore, leadership is more than just a title. So today we're going to focus on the next 4 sessions are going to be small little bits about burnout and the signs of burnout and when to catch it before it becomes a problem or impact your health or your life or your relationships or your function in your job. So if you're feeling tired or everything's bothering you, depressed, anxious, lack of passion or interest, those could be some underlying signs that burnout is approaching. And what we know from burnout is that there are some addictions that add to the stress and anxiety of burnout. So we're talking about perfectionism, approval seeking, people pleasing. And under those addictions are stories that we tell ourselves. So this week, we're going to focus on the stories that are underneath the surface that impact our potential and our success and unknowingly promote burnout. So I'm going to show my screen. And let's see. Okay, so we're going to first talk about burnout and the stories we tell. So the stories we tell have the stories we tell ourselves are rooted long ago when we were children, things we've heard or explanations we create, and they run continuously underneath the surface. Many times we don't know they're there until there's a crisis at hand. And I like to use the sinkhole as an example of that. And sometimes it's burnout, sometimes it's a health crisis. But the goal this week is to identify stories we might be telling ourselves that are impacting our potential and maybe contributing to burnout. We're going to look at stories around how we look at other people, how we look at ourselves, and how we view boundaries. So let's take a look at how we look at other people. So you know the law of attraction. You attract what you think, what you seek, what you get is what you give is what you get. And the same goes for how we view people. And sometimes we have stories underneath the surface that predict how the other person's going to interact with us. We bring an energy to the conversation that dictates how that person's going to respond. So this picture is a paradigm of how we look at people. We might see a young lady with a hat and a feather cap, or we might see an older lady who looks like she's cold and grouchy with a hood on and a big jacket. So what we see in other people is what they're going to give back to us. So if we see people as cold, untrustworthy, mean, out to get us, if we're constantly competing with other people or comparing ourselves to other people, then that's what we get back. So how we tell our stories about what other people are like determines our potential and what we get from other people. So this week, as you're out and about, be mindful of how people are interacting to you and ask yourself, could this be because of a story that I might be telling myself? If so, how can I change that story and see if the interaction changes? So, the next one is the stories we tell about ourselves. Sometimes these seem to be a little bit more obvious because we're a little bit more in tune with the physical aspects of ourselves. Like, we don't like how we look, or we're too tall, we're too skinny, we're too short, we're too fat, we're too, your feet are too big, our hands are too small. We don't like brown eyes, we want blue eyes. We wish our hair was curly when it's straight, or it's too frizzy. All those kind of stories shape and mold our potential. And when we tell ourselves like we're not good enough, or we call ourselves names, and we criticize ourselves, those all reduce our potential for growth and contribute to burnout. So the stories we tell ourselves about making mistakes, if we see mistakes as punitive, if we punish ourselves for making mistakes, if we call ourselves names, those all will deplete our potential and contribute to burnout. We'll feel overwhelmed, anxious, depressed, defeated whenever we make a mistake. But if we change those stories and look at mistakes as stepping stones to success, opportunities for change, the only way for us to grow is through mistakes, then the mindset towards a mistake changes, and the stories we tell ourselves change the way we see mistakes and add energy rather than taking away energy. So, how we tell our stories about ourselves, how we tell our stories about other people, impact how we feel about situations and can contribute to burnout. The next stories we tell ourselves, I thought the stories we tell ourselves impact our energy and our health, and the outcomes that we achieve. So I thought this cartoon was perfect because you have two people at the same point, but because of the stories they told themselves, expended different amounts of energy to get there and found the outcome differently. So, for example, the one man on the left, he's climbing the mountain to try and find this vista to see the view. And he told himself the only way to do that is to go up on a rope and climb for hours to get to the top. This other gentleman on the right, he said to himself, there's no way I'm going to climb that mountain. There's got to be another way to be able to see that view. And sure enough, he went around the mountain, asked some people some questions, and found this path at the top. And here they are at the same spot. But how they got there was based on the stories they told themselves. And each story expended different energy and mindsets and time and impacted how they felt at the end of the day. They both had the same outcome, but how much energy do we expend to get there? And that's with burnout too. We might be achieving and succeeding from on outcomes and metrics, but how we're getting ourselves there and the stories we're telling ourselves are ultimately going to deplete ourselves and create more burnout. So this week's all about stories. So when you're out and about and somebody agitates you or you feel defeated or let down, ask yourself, am I telling myself a different story about myself or others? Or is my energy drained because of the types of stories I'm telling myself? So just be aware of how you're feeling and how a story might be impacting those feelings this week. Thanks for tuning in. Next week, we're going to focus more on boundaries and the stories we tell ourselves on boundaries and how to set boundaries in a respectful way to preserve your energy and ultimately prevent burnout.